I never played many Napoleonic games. I don't know why. Nothing against them, just didn't happen. But recently I tried several games in the Napoleonic 20 series by Victory Point Games, and there will be reviews about those games, and they got me more and more interested in the topic. I felt I wanted to play more games about the Napoleonic Age. Last weekend I was in Boston. I visited the Complete Strategist game store, 957 Commonwealth Avenue. I'm not getting paid for saying this, I'm just volunteering the information that there is a very good game store there. Well, and in that game store, Complete Strategist, I saw a copy of Napoleon's War, The 100 Days. And it looked interesting. The components looked amazing. I had heard that the game uses the same action point system of Hold the Line, which I enjoy. So, well, from me holding this game and being filming the introduction of a review, I guess that you can figure out what happened then, and probably you can also figure out what's going to happen next. Units are represented on the map by these awesome figurines that you see here, and the number of figurines in a hex represents the level of morale of a certain unit. For example, British infantry has a maximum and starting level of morale of 4, so at the beginning you will place 4 figurines for each British infantry unit. Prussian and French infantry have 3, and Dutch infantry has 2, and then artillery and cavalry of all nationalities have a morale of 2. Each time a unit takes a hit, loses a point of morale, and so you will remove a figurine. This unit takes a hit, 1 less figurine, 1 less point of morale, another hit, 1 less. If the unit goes to 0 morale, 0 figurines, it is removed from the game and cannot return later. However, if a leader intervenes before that happens, then if a leader is present in a hex, that owning player can attempt to rally that unit by rolling a die, spending action points, and he may be able to return some figurines to the unit. At the core of this design is the concept of action points. Each player will roll a die at the beginning of each turn to determine how many action points are available, and the player will add the base number of 4 to the result of the die, so each player will have anywhere between 5 and 10 action points available each turn. And a lot of the flavor of the game comes from the fact that action points can be spent on any and all of the units that a player owns, so there's going to be a lot of flexibility. For example, infantry can move up to 2 axes by spending 1 action point per X. So for example, in this case, the player could spend 1 action point and move that infantry unit there. Then now the infantry unit is on the road actually doubles the movement, so for a second action point, the player would be able to execute that movement. Cavalry can move up to 3 axes per turn and only costs 1 action point. So for just 1 action point, the player will be able to move 1 and maybe then 2 and then, well, 3 there. And artillery, per artillery, you can only spend 1 action point per turn to move artillery 1x. Just like that. Units in turn can move or attack, not both, and there are 2 types of attack. One is fire combat, it costs 1 action point. It is a form of range combat that allows a unit to fire against an enemy, and the result will depend on the distance of the target from the firing unit and the terrain where the target is located. Each unit will roll a base number of 3 dice for each attack. The number can be modified depending on the terrain of the target. Usually a defensive terrain will lower the number of dice that are rolled. And as you can see, each type of unit will have different stats. Infantry can fire all the way up to 2 axes of distance, but the number to hit is 6, so it needs to roll a 6 to inflict a hit. Cavalry really does not have a good range, can only fire at enemies that are adjacent, and it requires a 6 in order to be able to hit. Artillery, of course, has the best range of them all, can fire all the way up to 3 axes, even though then it takes a 6 to be able to hit, and when firing at 1 or 2 axes of distance can hit with a 5 or a 6. The other form of combat is called shock combat, which basically means melee. In order to be able to execute shock combat, an infantry unit needs to already be adjacent to the enemy unit that is being targeted, and cavalry, quite the contrary, needs to be non-adjacent to the target and actually needs to be able to move adjacent to the target. It is basically a charge, and so the cavalry needs to be able to gain some momentum. The best way to counteract an enemy charge is by placing your infantry in square formation, which you can do by using this marker here. You can place your unit in square formation in one of two ways. You can spend an action point during your turn, you place the marker there, and now that unit has special bonus, defensive bonus against enemy charges. Or if you did not do that, you can try to place your unit, your infantry unit in formation while the enemy is charging you. In that case, however, you really die. If you're lucky, you execute the formation, all the same, all regular. However, if you're not lucky, then you fail to execute the maneuver and your enemy catches you unprepared, and now the enemy charge has an extra bonus against you. Infantry executing shock combat will inflict a hit with a 5 or a 6, which is good, but look at this. Cavalry executing shock combat, which is executing a charge, will hit with a 4, 5, or 6, 50% chance. This is pretty good, which is really why you want to mount as many charges as possible, and you also need to try to prevent your opponents from charging your units too often. As you can see also, that is modified by the infantry being in square. In fact, if an infantry unit is in square, then the cavalry charge will hit only with a 6, so big improvement. However, at the same time, other units will get a bonus when firing against that unit. So actually, if infantry or artillery is firing against an infantry which is in square, they receive a +1 die. So, well, pluses and minuses. You're better defended against one thing and less against the other one. And this is pretty much it. This is a very simple game. You spend your action points executing maneuvers, attacking, moving, rallying, doing a couple of other things. Once you're out of action points, the turn goes to the opponent. He rolls a die and starts spending action points, and the game goes back and forth until one of the two players has met the victory conditions for the scenario. The game comes with 4 scenarios, which are described on these 2 double-sided battle cards. Each comes with a nice illustration of the setup, and then there may be special rules, reinforcements, other things, victory conditions, very clear, all of them. But I wanted to keep the description of the game in general short because I wanted to spend a little bit of time showing you how the scenarios play. This is the setup for the Ligny scenario, which pits the French army against the Prussian army. It is a scenario that I believe works well, especially as an introductory scenario, because you do not have any special rules here. There are no victory points coming from control of certain axes, is only elimination of enemy units. You do not have reinforcements to take into account. Everybody's already on the map at the beginning. So I think it's pretty good when you're practicing maneuvering and combat and how to use terrain to your advantage. As a battle, it's not my favorite one because it feels a little too much all over the place. You may have all the action concentrated on one side at some point, then it switches to the other side, and it switches again, it moves around. With no apparent logic. I guess that there is something interesting in there, in the unpredictability of battle. Any area of the battlefield may become crucial next turn, but to me it's just not as interesting. It's a nice scenario, but not my first choice. This is the setup for Wavre, which is a scenario that I really like. At the beginning, you have the French army concentrated here on this side of the river. They have a lot of power, a lot of guns there, a lot of firepower. And on the other side, you have the Prussian army, which is trying to put together a defense as fast as possible. Victory points are awarded for eliminating enemy units, but also for exiting units out of this edge here. The Prussian player receives 1 victory point for each unit which is exited from there, so here it seems easy. But the problem is that the French player receives 3 victory points for each unit which is exited through this edge here. So the first tough decision for the Prussian player really is to decide how many units can be committed to the defense here and how many can be exited here from this edge to gain victory points. You exit too many units, then the defense is weak, and the French player will exit so many units that will win him the game. Also, there's gonna be a lot of fighting going on in this area, especially because the Prussian player is defending in towns which are across bridges. That gives very good defensive bonus. It's not gonna be that easy for the French player to break through. but it is not going to be a static scenario, because you will have, yes, areas, moments in the game which is going to be mainly fighting here along the river, but then from time to time the French player will manage to break through, and then the Prussian player will have to use some units to run after those French units. So it's going to be moments which are more stationary, and moments are extremely dynamic. This is the map and setup for Quatre Bras. The map is dominated by ridges all around here and woods, so it is not an easy map. Only this area here is clear terrain where the cavalry can really charge freely. Victory points in this scenario are awarded for destroying enemy units and for control of this hex there, but more importantly, more victory points for the control of Quatre Bras. As you can see at the beginning of the LA player does not have many units on the map, and those are very weak Dutch units against the huge and powerful French army. So at the beginning, the LA player really cannot do much but trying to defend desperately and slow down the French player as much as possible while waiting for reinforcements, because the LA player will receive reinforcements during turns 4, 5, and 8. And as you can see, during turn 5, really there are a lot of people that are going to enter the game, and they will enter the battle from that X up there. So they will be close to Quatre Bras. Here you see the map and the setup for the Waterloo scenario. As you see at the beginning, the French army outnumbers the Allied players' army, also because some of these units of the Allied player, these ones with the orange counters, are Belgian or Dutch units. They are not very strong. So the Allied player at the beginning really has to try to survive for as long as possible until reinforcements arrive. Luckily enough, there are quite a few reinforcements that are scheduled to enter the game later. Those are all the reinforcements that the Allied player will receive during turns 5, 11, and 18. I like to mark them on the turn track already. And I also like the fact that the reinforcements are scheduled to enter through any of these hexes here that have a gray arrow printed on them, because that will give the Allied player the opportunity of using the reinforcement to threaten the rear or to threaten the front. So it will create uncertainty for the French player as of where the reinforcements are going to strike. A lot of fun, a lot of interesting situations. I like this game a lot. I like pretty much everything in it. It is simple, but at the same time it does not feel simplistic. The fact that you do not have a standard sequence of event in a turn. Sometimes you can move everybody, then attack, or move a unit, attack, rally, square, move more, attack. The fact that you can change your order of actions every turn gives it so much depth. It feels much deeper than you would expect at first, and just opens so many options. It makes each turn really surprising and fun. I like the fact that units are not always good or bad. It's very situational. You have to learn how to use infantry or cavalry when they're at the best and try to protect them when they become weak, changing the situation around them. I love the action point system. You cannot predict how many action points you'll have next turn, so you do not know exactly what you'll be able to do, which creates a lot of interesting situations when you're playing face to face, and it makes the game perfect for solitary playing. The only minus thing that I can see is the price. The game is expensive. I paid $70 for it. Sure, I was buying it in a store, not online. I wanted to support local economy, but $70 is a lot if you think that for the same amount of money I got Tide of Iron. Another thing is that the game has 4 scenarios. Well, there are games with 1 scenario, so this is already better, but also games, especially in this price range, that come with a book full of scenarios, 10, 12, more than that. So here you have 4 great scenarios, very well designed, a lot of variety. They play differently from one another, but it is 4. Sooner or later you'll feel like, I like to play something else with these components and these rules, and then you have to purchase the battle pack. There are 2 of them available. More battles, but again, more money that you have to spend here. Great components, a lot of fun playing with these soldiers and everything, but these are the pluses and the minuses. This being said, I still hope that you will want to give a try to this game, because I think it's a really good game. I see how it can really drag you in. I personally think I'll play it a lot. I see this hitting the table quite often because it will be easy to teach to other players. The setup time is minimal, and really players will start having fun in no time. Napoleon's War, The 100 Days, really highly recommended game.